There are two different ways that you can go offshore. One is offensive, one is defensive. One is active, one is passive. In this video, I'm going to explain the difference between both and help you figure out which one you need. Hey, I'm Andrew Henderson, and it's really interesting to see people with their different needs for going offshore. Some people come to Nomad Capitalist because they're paying a lot of money in taxes and their competitors have an advantage over them because their competitors' taxes aren't as high. They want to find a way to reduce their taxes as soon as possible in a legal way. Other people come and say, I just sold my business. I don't have a tax issue anymore, but I would like to protect myself against things that I think might be happening, things that might happen to my wealth, to my family, to myself. And those are indicative of the two very different approaches to going offshore. Both are good, neither one is better than the other, but I think it's important to understand both approaches and understand whether you need one or whether you need both. So really, I call it very simply Plan A and Plan B. Now, Plan B is a term that a number of people use when they're promoting different kind of strategies, everything from the crap hitting the fan crowd all the way to just kind of sane diversification. And so Plan B is what people talk about when they say, hey, you know what, I'd like to have a bank account in another country. It's not necessarily a tax savings idea. It's just, I'd like to be diversified. I'd like to hold other currencies. Maybe I don't think the US dollar is going to do as well. And so just having all my assets in US dollars, it's not such a great idea. Maybe I want to buy a house in another country as a place to go to, as a place to have as a backup, all those kinds of strategies, okay? Plan B is the backup plan, right? That's why they call it Plan B. And what I look at this is it's a very kind of defensive strategy. It's a passive strategy because you're not really seeking any necessarily active benefits. You're trying to accumulate basically a series of insurance policies so that no matter what happens, you will be safe and your money will be intact. Now, I think Plan B is very important. I think Plan B is something that applies more and more to you the more successful you are, the more money you have, and potentially the older you are as well. As you get a little bit older, I see myself doing more and more stuff, building my own Plans B than I would have, 10 years ago, okay? And so Plan B really is about protection. It's an insurance policy. And I think that the challenge with Plan B in terms of a behavioral approach that I see with people is it's never fun to buy an insurance policy. No one gets excited about buying car insurance or health insurance. It's like the bane of all of our existence. Who wants to buy insurance? But that's basically what Plan B is. Now, obviously in the offshore world, you can make some of your plans a little bit sexier. You can buy that house that you want to keep as a Plan B in case things go bad in your own country. That house can be a place that you spend your summers. It can be a fun project. You can make it kind of sexy. Having a bank account in another country. A lot of people get excited about doing that and going to another country, and there's an excitement to it. But at the end of the day, Plan B is an insurance policy. You don't have any use for this stuff in particular right now. You're basically creating redundancies. And again, the more successful that our company is, the more successful that I am, and the more successful I see all of you becoming, that's when you need more of these Plans B, right? So the more money you have, the more that you probably say, hey, you know what? Just being a U.S. citizen isn't such a great idea. What if something happens, okay? The impact to a person with $100 million is greater than the impact to someone with $100,000 if something happens with the dollar or if something happens with a particular country, right? So that's what Plan B is all about. Now, Plan A, on the other hand, is I've got a problem now that needs to be solved. I need a new Plan A. So as many of you know, for a number of years, I lived in the United States, ran businesses in the United States that could have been offshore. I said, eventually, you know what? I want a new Plan A. My Plan A now is paying well over 40% in total tax. I'm wasting a lot of money. I'm not getting a lot for it. I'd like a new Plan A. And so I figured out, okay, through years and years of research and studying and figuring this stuff out back when so many resources didn't exist, I figured out, okay, here's how it works legally, okay? I know everything that works, illegally, some stuff that people talked about in the 70s, here's what works today. And I was able to put some of that stuff into place. Not only because I wanted to save money on taxes, but I also, actually the initial driving factors were I just didn't like living in the United States. My plan A was living in the United States. I didn't want to live there. And then what I found was I liked socializing with people better in other countries, right? And so my plan A was to, have a social life and have a lifestyle that was overseas. And oh, by the way, that meant I get to save a bunch of money. And so plan A is what you need to do right now. As I've talked about before, if you have $1 million company, you pay $365,000 a year in tax, and you can cut that tax by 80%, you're losing $800 a day. It's being flushed in the toilet, never to be seen again. You'll never get that money back. You need a new plan A to change the paradigm, okay? This is things like setting up offshore companies, offshore tax plans, second residences to fulfill what you need to do personally to engage that tax plan. So a lot of the strategies between plan A and plan B overlap. It's really just the use of those strategies and how you want to implement them, right? The person with plan B is not losing $800 a day, okay? And again, we've had a big growth in our company of people who have sold companies from $50 million up to $200 million. That seems to be roughly the range of people who come and then say, you know what, now I want to be diversified. Some of these people will tell me, Andrew, maybe if I would have heard about this stuff, 10 or 20 years ago, maybe I would have moved to Puerto Rico. Maybe I would have moved to Panama or to Singapore. I might have done that, and you know what? Over the years, I would have saved a lot of money in tax. But it's too late for that now, and water under the bridge. But now I want to make sure that I'm internationalized, that I'm growing my $100 million, for example, as effectively as possible. I had one gentleman who came who had sold a company, and he said, I own, kind of like commercial, neighborhood real estate, like a strip mall kind of thing. He says, I'm making 5 or 6% a year. And he says, I just think that's bad, right? He's like, that's how I generate my income. And so I'm not looking at it from a tax perspective, he said. I'm looking just to have some other places where I can invest, okay? So there's a big difference between these camps. For me personally, I like a blend. I've already put a lot of my plan into place. So now I'm constantly looking for how do I build out more redundancies? How do I diversify my banking? How do I have more citizenships that not only am I protected, but I have more places that I have the access to live in and they can't tell me to leave, okay? So what I want everyone who's watching this to understand is which camp you fall into. It might be one or the other. It might be both. What I would say is if you're in a building mode, plan A is a lot more important, okay? If you're coming to me and saying, Andrew, my company's increasing 100% year over year, and I'm becoming very successful, plan A is going to be the first priority. Now, once plan A is in place, we can go and build out some of the redundancies and build out some of the plan B. But if you understand that plan A is active, it's offensive, you're scoring wins, that may be the first place someone who's actively earning money needs to start. Plan B is having insurance policies. And again, the big thing that you have to understand is there is a behavioral difference when it comes to buying insurance policies. If you're just buying a second passport, not because you want to use it as part of a tax strategy, but if you're buying a second passport just in case, it's going to be likely harder for you to part with that money. I don't care how much money you have. Had a guy recently, $200 million net worth. Hey man, here's your citizenship plan. Yeah, I'll think about it. Cool. Yeah, cool. Maybe I'll come back in a few months. There's not an urgency, okay? The guy has the money, right? But unless it's like really fun for you, unless you're like me and you just geek out on this and you just love the process, I don't care if you have $200 million, $1 million out of $200 million. Sure, you could spend $1 million a lot of ways. Just because you have the money doesn't mean you'll spend it just because it's irrelevant to you. Whereas, someone who comes to me with $1 million, who needs to spend $100,000 to get a passport to make their tax plan go, that's a lot easier for that guy to do because plan A, that $100,000 has an ROI, okay? That $100,000 will yield him an extra, $200,000 or $300,000 in just the first year, and then every year thereafter. It's a lot easier decision. So understand which camp you fall into, understand which priorities you have in each, and I think that will help you put together the proper plan from the right perspective. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson from Nomad Capitalist. I wrote this book, which you can find on Amazon, to distill a lot of the stuff we talk about in these videos and a lot of the stuff I've learned over the last decade plus traveling all around the world, teaching you about how to legally reduce your taxes, build your personal freedom, and create wealth faster. Definitely get a copy of this book if you want to learn more. Now, if you want to watch more videos, make sure you subscribe to our channel and make sure you click the notifications bell so you never miss one of our new videos with more tips on how to go where you're treated best. And if you're already a 6 or 7 figure entrepreneur and you'd like to put these strategies in place for yourself, go to nomadcapitalist.com and learn about how I can help you.